grew up in Des Moines, Iowa, and my dad had two big bookshelves in our living room, which I thought were enormous when I was a kid. And one of the most wonderful things about those bookshelves was that nobody in our house told me which books to read or which books not to read or anything. And when I got to be about 13, I just started dipping into them, pulling them down. And by and large, I didn't have any idea what I was reading. I mean, I didn't know whether I was reading a classic or just some light fiction or what. And by doing that, I just discovered all of these writers. I mean, everybody from P.G. Wodehouse to Saki, the short story writer. These were mostly Book of the Month Club books from the 40s and 50s. James Hilton, who wrote a lot of popular, quite light fiction in those days. But what happened, the effect of that was that it just, I discovered the magic of the written word and the varieties that are, just the richness of it, how many different ways there are of presenting stories and telling tales. And to me, that was a completely magical experience. If anybody had given me a reading list, I probably would have rebelled against it, but because I was discovering it myself, it was just magical. There's two factors I have to take into account now. One is because I'm an American living in Britain and I'm writing for both audiences. It has to be something, well, ideally it ought to be something that would appeal to audiences in both countries, that it isn't just specifically of interest to Americans or specifically of interest to Britons. So it has to be something of a broad interest, and I always have to factor that in. I have to please editors in both London and New York. So there's that. But even more crucial to me is that it has to be something that I'm pretty sure is going to keep my interest for 2 or 3 or 4 years or more, because it's the investment of time necessary to write a book is pretty considerable, and I can't think of anything worse than finding yourself half into a topic and discovering that actually you're bored to death with it, because I don't know how you could fake that. I mean, I think that would inevitably come through in the material that you wrote. So it really has to be something that I'm gripped by. Where would I be shelved? Oh gosh. I don't know. The early dementia section, I suppose. I don't know. I haven't got any idea. That's a very good question. Because I mean, I really don't fit in. I mean, it's very nice for me personally, but I mean, I am, something of a hybrid now because I'm very much an American. I grew up in this country, but at the same time, I've increasingly become a foreigner in my own country because I've lived away for almost the whole of my adult life. 30 of the last 40 years I've lived in England, and so I'm very much at home there too, but at the same time I'm always a foreigner there. So, I didn't even know what nationality to describe me. I mean, I just in terms of where you would place me geographically, I'm vague and uncertain, which doesn't bother me in real life, but in terms of where you place me as a book, I wouldn't know. But, just to be shelved in the libraries, I'd be very happy wherever I was. Prescribing a book, I think, is a terrible mistake. That you might guide people or sort of gently encourage them to go towards certain books, but I think every reader should be allowed to make their own choice in a perfect world. And if you're only going to read one book, I mean, for goodness sake, that should be a choice that you make for yourself. The book I think that I've always been most fond of myself is my own memoir, because I had a very happy childhood, and it's a very kind of fond recollection of growing up in Iowa in the 1950s and 1960s, and that's a book. It's called The Life and Times of the Thunderbolt Kid. I thought they did two things really, really well. I thought they captured the chemistry of the two of us, me and my hiking companion Stephen Katz. I thought they got that really good. I thought the friendship was captured very, very well. And the other thing I thought they conveyed incredibly well was the beauty of the eastern woods. I mean, one of the things you can do in a movie that you cannot do in real life is you can draw back and have helicopter shots, and you can see the whole landscape. And so a lot of what I was seeing on the screen, I'd never seen before, because you're seeing it from 2,000 feet up. And I was just struck again and again by how beautiful that landscape is. I have started already on my next book, which is going to be about the human body. And it's really going to be looking at our bodies as wonderful machines, and how I just think it's amazing that all these systems look after us. You know, I mean, if you just think about any part of your body, but I mean, as we're sitting here now, we're not consciously doing anything, but as we're sitting here, you know, millions of proteins are being manufactured and hormones are coursing through your veins and all these systems are at work keeping you, you know, in pretty good shape. And I think that's quite miraculous and something that we, as possessors of our bodies, tend to take for granted and really hardly ever reflect upon.